Welcome to this episode of Eureka, and we are going to have a very interesting, enlightening conversation with Professor Ravi Mehrotra, who is the Director of National Institute for Cancer Prevention and Research, a constituent unit of Indian Council for Medical Research, and this institute is in Noida. Many of us believe that cancer is incurable. Once you get cancer, it's a death sentence. Some of us very strongly believe it's infectious. We don't even want to go near a cancer patient. We are going to learn quite a lot about cancer, what's our burden, how are we going to manage it in coming years. Keep watching the show, but before that we are going to take a quick look at his brief profile. Keep watching Eureka.
Cancer is the major growing public health problem in India, where around 13 lakh cases occur every year. But very few know that around 60% of cancer can be prevented if detected early. And there are many scientists who are working in early detection of cancer. Professor Ravi Mehrotra is one of them, who is presently the director at the ICMR National Institute of Cancer Prevention and Research at Noida, also heading the WHO of FCTC Global Knowledge Hub on smokeless tobacco. Professor Mehrotra is a strong believer in early diagnostic techniques in the field of cancer prevention as well as tobacco control. He has worked in the areas of oral malignancies over the last 2 decades and reported on its epidemiology, early diagnosis and management. He completed his medical training at the prestigious Armed Forces Medical College, Pune, followed by MD and DPhil from University of Allahabad and Fellowship of the Royal College. His research interests are focused on the early diagnosis and screening of cancer, medical education, tobacco control and tele-mentoring. Also, his contribution to cancer diagnosis utilizing affordable technology has been widely recognized. His research has emphasized the need for routine screening and early diagnosis of all at-risk individuals. Professor Mehrotra has won many prestigious awards. Noted among them is Dr. P.N. Vahi, Dr. Lackman Award in Cancer Prevention, and Ernest Fernandez Award of the Indian Academy of Cytologists.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, being with us. I mean, it's a very wonderful opportunity.
Thank you for having me.
Let me start with some of the myths. Perhaps that way, I mean, we can break the ice and get into the issues. Many people believe that once you get cancer, it's a death sentence. Do you think it's a death sentence?
We have a famous 80-20 rule that you might be aware of. 80% of our patients, unfortunately, come in stage 3 and 4.
Okay, that is very late stage.
As compared to the West,
once disease is mature,
spread all over.
Okay.
And then, even with the best of treatment, the possibility of saving them is not more than 20%.
Okay.
On the other hand, in the West and more developed economies, even in other parts of Asia, where people are more aware, there are better diagnostic facilities as well as treatment facilities, they come, 80% come early and 20% come late. So unfortunately, we are at the point of transition. What I would love to see happen, that 80% of our people come earlier. However, it is true that certain cancers, fortunately they are rarer, we cannot do anything. Once you diagnose cancer, we know that it's a matter of months or maybe years to go. But at least 60% of our cancers in India are preventable.
Preventable? You are not talking about curable, but you are saying preventable.
I'm talking about preventable.
Okay.
With the limited resources at our hands in the government and in the private setup, it is not easy to get all the necessary expensive equipment, expensive medication. Roughly 30 to 40% of all our cancers are due to tobacco.
You mean to say about 50% of the cancer patients who hit the hospitals are because tobacco abuse?
At least 40%. Yes.
At least 40%.
At least 40%. Another 20% can be prevented if they are appropriate as far as infections are concerned, and also if they are avoiding obesity. These are the three most important causes.
So, what are the three major you said?
Tobacco, obesity and infections.
So, these three are the major issues that we need to be
These are the most preventable causes of cancer. And if we were to be sure about this, that we were to be careful about them, 60% of all cancers can be prevented.
Prevented, forget about treatment.
Treatment is a different story altogether. I mean, I can talk for hours how we have limited diagnostic facilities, limited treatment facilities. Each patient, I would expect it will be about 1.5 to 2 lakhs would be the bare minimum for treatment. But for a country like India, in the current economic scenario that we have, if we can prevent it, don't you agree, my friend, that would be a far better.
Of course, forget about money. For even the person not getting a cancer is better than getting a cancer and getting cured.
Unfortunately, it is still true when we say that to any patient that this is a cancer that you have, more than half his blood is already dried up. So their fear psychosis is there. First of all, caught early, we can treat and be sure about it. If caught, we like to make it a chronic disease.
Not a death sentence.
Not a death sentence. But
See,
I mean,
major.
there are some tumors, for example, brain tumor. At the moment, we have nothing for it.
Okay. We need further research.
Fortunately, pancreatic tumor, gallbladder tumors, brain tumors, lung cancer, unfortunately, again is common. We do not have really very good treatment at the moment. But a lot of researches are on in India and outside the country. Let us see where we go. But in principle, to answer your query in one sentence, no, most cancers are not death sentences, provided they are caught early and treated well.
Second question that people have in their mind is that when they know that a particular family has a cancer patient or had a history of cancer patient, first thing they think that, oh, then maybe that all their progeny would be cancer affected. You know, marriage, so many issues, plus cancer patients are treated as if they are, untouchable.
Correct. This is a very good question, and it's a common taboo, because we do come across such situations where even the relatives say, please don't tell the patient that he's got cancer. First of all, they are scared. Not only they are scared for the patient, they are scared for themselves also. So, not more than 5 to 10% of all cancers run in the family. For example, breast cancer or ovarian cancer in ladies. Breast cancer is the most common cancer in females. Not more than 10% run in families. Okay. So, if a lady has a breast cancer, it is not essential that her sister, her daughter or her mother may have it.
Okay.
Right? But for that, there are specific tests available. Once done, that individual, for example, you heard about Angelina Jolie, for example, famous film actress, whose family, there was a very strong family history of breast cancer. She had particular markers called BRCA, which was positive, and her doctors advised her bilateral breast removal, or what we call mastectomy. But this happened, so after that happened, a lot of my patients came to me that, please check, my mother had breast cancer or my sister had. So once they are checked, 90% and more do not have that problem. But I think now that facilities are getting more available, they are cheaper than what they used to be, it is a good idea. So as a broad rule, if you take, that are all cancers heritable? No.
Fine. That is a key point. It is not infectious, it is not heritable, so don't look at a family as affected.
As a matter of fact, that individual requires more loving care and attention rather than other ways. Because as it is, the person is depressed and has all sorts of other ailments going on, so that person requires much more people to go and meet, because depression is also a problem.
See, now coming to another major issue, particularly perhaps more prevalent in India given our cultural connotation, is women. One of the major cancer that affects women, maybe in the top 3, is breast cancer, and people don't want to talk about it, right? I mean, you don't even, you are even scared to ask yourself the question, right? I mean, there is a taboo. You think, how do we manage this issue?
That 26, that is the highest percentage of all cancers in females are breast cancers. About 26 to 27% is breast cancer, about 21% are cervical cancers. For breast, fortunately, there has been a lot of public awareness now, and a lot of survivors have talked about it, how they actually got the treatment, how they went through it, the journey, and how they are okay now, except go for a yearly checkup, and that's the end of it. Cervical cancer, we don't even have a name in our local language.
Okay.
So that is actually, and there are no advocates which have actually supported. There are many people who have cervical cancer who are treated who are absolutely hale and hearty. So I think awareness is the key to this. There are a lot of advertisements now from various bodies, including the government, talk about cancer diagnosis, talking about cancer prevention, talking about female literacy, female empowerment, and how, for example, yearly checkup, anybody over the age of 30 until when you are 65, the government as such has made a program which we talk about regular cancer screening, that is in addition to other diseases like cardiovascular disease, that is heart disease, or diabetes. So they have made this a package of 3 things: cancer, heart, as well as diabetes, or a yearly checkup.
Yearly checkup.
And you will be happy to know that the government is soon to roll out this particular thing in 135 districts of India.
Okay, very interesting. We should talk about it a little bit more, but we will take a very short break. Keep watching Eureka. We are going to have a wonderful conversation about other aspects of cancer. Keep watching Eureka. Welcome back to Eureka, and we are having a very wonderful conversation with Professor Ravi Mehrotra, who is the Director of National Institute for Cancer Prevention and Research, a constituent unit of Indian Council for Medical Research in Noida. We were talking about some of the common myths before the break. Now let me come back to your work. We want to know about your work. I mean, when I entered into this place, I saw smokeless tobacco. I was zapped. What does this mean? I mean, everybody knows that tobacco means smoke, either in the form of cigarette or in the form of BD or in the form of pipe. What does this smokeless tobacco mean?
There is a lot of publicity about not smoking in public places. Yeah. And fortunately, India has had very significant success. Nowadays, if you go in the middle of a park, that's a different story. But if you are in a cinema hall or a restaurant, hardly anywhere people find smoking. Yeah. Yeah. Right? Unfortunately, we are one country where we consume tobacco not only in forms of smoking, that is either most common thing is BDs and cigarettes in that order, but roughly half of our consumption in the form of chewing tobacco.
Okay, yes, yeah, chewing tobacco.
So gutka, zarda, khaini, these are the kind of things which are, I think, openly available in spite of the ban, in spite of so many stringent advertisements. Now, as you know, 85% of any pack of smokeless tobacco or smoking BDs or have to have a warning. But if you are an addict or you are a victim of, I would say a victim of tobacco, you generally tend to avoid even looking at that particular warning. So unfortunately, 90% of all smokeless tobacco products are sold and consumed in South Asia, out of which 80% are in India and Bangladesh, which are the 2 major countries.
So we are the international capital for smokeless tobacco consumption.
Absolutely. Okay. So last year in 2016, the Government of India and the WHO, in connection with the Framework Convention for Tobacco Control, FCTC, they opened the international hub for knowledge on smokeless tobacco.
Okay.
And we were fortunate to be chosen as National Institute of Cancer Prevention to host that hub. And we are providing information not only on what are the varieties of smokeless tobacco, but also what are the best control policies, what are the areas where we can actually implement the bans and make sure that this scourge also decreases.
Now coming to the issue, how does tobacco induce cancer? I mean, for cancer occurring, there should be some mutation occurring in your cells, otherwise the cancer doesn't occur. How does the tobacco eating would do that?
Excellent, that's a very good question. Thank you for asking me that. Tobacco, the active ingredient is nicotine, as you know, which itself doesn't cause cancer but causes other diseases. But there are a lot of additives to it. There are something known as nitrosamines, tobacco specific nitrosamines, as well as tar content is there. That in smoking, that is a problem. Unfortunately, in smokeless tobacco, a variety of other ingredients are also put in. For example, smokeless tobacco, a lot of areca nut is put in. Okay. Areca nut, that is betel nut. So, areca is a known carcinogen. In addition to the nitrosamines, in addition to tar, there are about more than 300 constituents of tobacco, out of which at least 60 are cancer causing. It causes damage to the cell, to the DNA, and also prevents the repair mechanism. Normally, if some injury is there to the cell, the repair mechanism looks after it. If a person is a tobacco user, those repair mechanisms are also not that efficient. So, once a mutation occurs, there is no protection against it, and that is what. And tobacco causes cancer in at least 13 different organs of the body. It is not only the oral cavity, it is not only the lungs, but it can go on to the pancreas, can go on to variety of other organs of the body, which again most people only relate it to lungs. And in addition to cancer, of course, you are familiar, it is associated with other diseases of the lung, for example, chronic obstructive lung disease. It is also much higher in people who are taking tobacco, in diabetics, in people who have other diseases which are what you know comorbidities, and that creates not only trouble but double trouble.
See, moving on to another area that you had worked, and then I believe 2 states are also implementing, is vaccine for cervical cancer, which is the second most cancer among women, right?
Correct. And the most preventable cause of cancer in women.
So, what is this cervical cancer and how does this vaccine work?
See, cervix is the organ which is at the lower end of the uterus, that is the womb. Unfortunately, it is also amenable to infection by a virus which is known as human papilloma virus. This was proved nearly 25 years ago, and about 10 years ago, a vaccine was prepared. This is among the very few cancers, first of all, we know the cause. 99% of all cervical cancers are related to human papilloma virus. And we know the cause of and we know the vaccine that is available, that is commercially available. The 3 vaccines which are commercially available, out of which 2 are available in India. So, last year, that 2016, the Indian Council of Medical Research and my own organization, we held a stakeholders meeting. All the important stakeholders from various states, various cancer centers were called together to give an opinion whether this would be the right thing to use or not. It has been available in the private setup for the last 10 years. It is approved by the DGCI, and now we found that the governments were rather hesitant to introduce it, first of all because of cost, and secondly they did not know about it. So, I am very happy to mention the 2 states, that is Punjab, our neighboring state, and Delhi itself, in November 2016 started with vaccination for girls between the age of 9 and 13, school-going girls.
9 and 13?
9 and 13. That is the best age to go because you require only 2 doses. As compared to when you go higher age, it is 3 doses. And what these vaccines give about 80 to 85% protection against cervical cancer, which may come up at least 15, 20, 30 years later. But the most preventable cause of cervical cancer is giving a vaccine now. That is the best we have right now. And I am very hopeful that other states will be taking them up very shortly.
Very soon,
More than 10,000 individuals in Punjab have already taken this particular vaccine. The second dose was given in November 2017. And another about 2,500 have got it in Delhi. And this program in Delhi is available at the Delhi State Cancer Institute, and it is available free for all children. Whether it is government schools or private school, that is not there. You have to go there and get it. The Delhi government is planning to extend it to all school girls of that age, and so is the Punjab government.
Very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. We will take a very short break. Keep watching Eureka. After the break, we are going to discuss about why cancer deaths are more in India as compared to West, and what are our cancer burden in future. Keep watching Eureka. We will take a very short break. Don't go away. Welcome back to Eureka, and we are having a very wonderful conversation with Professor Ravi Mehrotra. Let's look at some Western world. For example, I was told in Japan, they have a national program for screening for their stomach cancer. Therefore, they have a kind of survival rate of about 95% and more. I mean, they catch the people very early and therefore they are able to treat it. I mean, they chose this because of their cultural reason and maybe issues over there. What is our strategy there?
You see, in Japan, they had a very high incidence of gastric cancer. As a matter of fact, you might be surprised to know that there is a tube investigation-wise for gastric endoscopes were actually invented in Japan.
Okay.
Because that was their need.
Yeah.
So they do yearly gastric cancer screenings, and the success rate for catching at the very, very early stages is actually stupendous. On the other hand, in our country, the most common cancers are of the oral cavity, the head and neck, the breast and the cervix, the three most common cancers. So the government, along with partners from around the country, both in the private and the government setup, as well as the Indian Council of Medical Research, and we were fortunate to be asked to spearhead of getting all the important stakeholders together to come up with a policy. So we had a meeting about 2-3 years ago, which we put together in a paper, a research paper which was published in Lancet Oncology. And that acted as a framework for the government to say that we already have this framework, we have the consensus from all the experts from the country and out of the country that this is the way to go. For the last 25 to 30 years, we've been trying to get some sort of consensus on this. I mean, I thank all my collaborators to able to help us to come up with this. And last year, in the month of August 2016, the Honorable Minister released the framework for control of cancer, including cancer screening. And there is a program of the government called NPCTS. So primarily, we combine it with the other non-communicable diseases, that is cancer is included, screening is included with cardiovascular, that is heart disease, as well as diabetes and stroke. So these 4 diseases were clumped together, and that is a recommendation from the World Health Organization as well. So the framework was made, all the nitty-gritty details were worked out, the training was done for various paramedical and medical workers. It has been in the various states where it was disseminated and they were asked to put in the next proposal. So this happened in 2017. Hopefully by next year, after the trainings are over, all the protocols in place, we are going to start.
We will be having a screening program in our country also.
Correct.
Very
it will
important
not be covering
point.
the entire country. For a start, we'll be starting on it in about 130 districts, and then once we have learned the lessons, we are improving, and we hope to cover about 80% of our country's population in about 3 years' time.
Okay, very interesting and very important, I suppose so. This leads me to the next question. See, today if you look at our population profile, about 65% are less than 35 years old. But given the fact that our average life expectancy is increasing, there are going to be more and more old people. More old people in a society means that more cancer patients, because cancer is an age-related problem, right? So, which means we are going to have a more number of cancer patients in this country. This also requires some kind of a policy initiative because we have to prepare now. Do we have enough oncologists? Do we have enough cancer treatment centers, screening centers?
That's an excellent question. Thank you for asking me that. Basically, we need a 3-pronged effort, in my view. Number one, we need a lot more awareness. At the moment, as you said, cancer is a death sentence. But if we know a little bit about it, for example, you were surprised to know that there 60% of our cancers can be prevented. Most people do not know this. And through your medium, your listeners should be knowing about this. So how to prevent it in the first place? There is a website, online portal in Hindi and in English called cancerindia.org.in.
cancerindia.org.in.
Please have a look at that. It tells you all the common cancers about it in India. Gives you a quiz, tells you what your own risk of cancer. It also tells you if unfortunately you are diagnosed with cancer, where do we go for treatment? It gives you a Google map. It tells you where you are. If you are on the internet, how to reach that place, how far. For example, in Delhi, it is the All India Institute of Medical Sciences. In Chennai, it will be the Adyar Institute, and the 29 regional cancer centers which has a link to. Gives you the email, gives you the phone number, and tells you the way. Also tells you what is the various funding available from the government, from the Prime Minister, from the state government, from the governor, and how to go for it. In your local language, it will tell you, for example, Andhra Pradesh or in Telangana, and give you your form, you download it, fill it up, and then of course you approach the district administration. Right. So this is one aspect which has really changed. I mean, it is getting a tremendous number of hits, and through your medium, I would like to other people to have a look at.
Certainly we should take a look at that this website. Yes.
The second thing that we have is better diagnostic facilities. Unfortunately, diagnostic facilities are expensive. Many of the regional cancer centers, and now there are so many state cancer centers which the government has actually funded, have these facilities, and the government is putting a lot more money into it. And of course, if you are insured, the number of cancer insurance, for example, the Life Insurance Corporation of India, LIC, just came up with a cancer insurance, which you might like to know about. Okay. So better diagnostic facilities. And lastly, if not the least, is better treatment facilities. The number of radiotherapists or radiotherapy machines at the moment is less than 1/3 of what we need for our population, given world standards. The number of medical oncologists, the number of surgical oncologists adequately trained are still lacking. They have tremendously increased. For example, in Northeast has the maximum prevalence of cancer in this country. The number of radiotherapy centers are very, very few. Now they are increasing, but a lot more needs to be done there, and I'm sure the government and the private setup, because the government cannot do everything, of course, a lot of newer incentives are coming. And now, as of just this morning, I found there is a direct flight from Imphal to Delhi.
Okay.
With the government has asked. So a lot of people from Imphal, for example, which is not too many medical centers are there, are coming to Delhi for treatment or to Bombay for treatment or other important cancer centers. So if they have the facility there, obviously, why should they need to travel? Yeah. So these are three basic things. Number one is awareness. Number two is better diagnostic facilities, and a lot of push for infrastructure and human resource development.
So that's an interesting point that you said, that three issues we need to focus if we have to meet the challenge of growing burden of cancer in this country. But now let me come back to the last question, but I think a very important question. Okay, though that's with we started this whole conversation. Taboo about cancer. What is your advice to all our viewers about this taboo?
Fortunately, in our country, when a person comes to a cancer hospital, he or she is accompanied by family, unlike the West, and that family looks after that individual by and large. But if people are worried about that cancer is infectious, or that the person will be a drain on the family's resources, there is no need to sell your land, your jewelry to do that. There are various ways of funding available, but more important and the most critical thing here is to have compassion, and if the cancer is treatable, please treat. If it is not treatable, let the person have as painless and as comfortable quality of life in dying days.
Well, I think this is a very, very important point and a very important issue to end our program also. Have compassion if you have a cancer patient among your family members or friends. That's the most important message I suppose this whole program has given. We will have to end this conversation here because of lack of time. We had lots of other questions, lot of interesting issues to discuss. Keep watching Eureka. We will come back with another conversation with another Indian scientist next week, same time, in the same time. Thank you.